Hey everyone, this is going to be a track walk at the full course of Road Atlanta. We're in the Porsche 911 RSR today. I'm gonna play the lap in full in cockpit view, then I'll play it in chase view, and then we'll do some track analysis. And here's the lap in chase view. Alright, so for your reference, that was a 116.10. For this track, there's nothing too special that I want to mention except for a caveat that you need to be very careful with the curbs. This lap is not necessarily the fastest lap, like your complete all-out qualifying lap. I wanted to show you more of the safer line that you would probably want to try to stick to, especially in a race for consistency and safety. And as we go through it, I'll show you there's basically just a lot of places where I'm taking a slightly safer line that kind of avoids the curbs a little more, just because there are some that can really bite you if you're not careful. All right. So coming into turn one here, our braking marker is pretty much going to be right after this wall ends. This is basically where I let off the throttle, and I'm aiming to brake kind of just a little bit after it. So right around here, I'm reaching my full brake pressure. It's kind of halfway in between that wall and then where this grass starts back here. So we have the wall here, and then full brake and the grass. We should be in 6th gear by the time you reach the end of that wall. If you're not, you may want to lower your gearing here. It's kind of a most of the straights except for the very back straight are fairly short, so you want the acceleration. And you can shorten your gearing here and still have plenty of top speed without running out of gear for the very back straight. So we hit the brakes not too hard. You don't want to shave off too much speed. You really want to carry speed through turn one. Drop down to fifth and then fourth, and then we come in and hit this apex right here. You'll notice right about here there's a little dip in the ground before it then goes uphill. You get a really nice compression on the tires and the suspension here. This is where you want to go full throttle. You can pick up a lot of speed, and you want to be all the way on the inside here because you do not want to wash out wide here. In this particular lap, I did actually get on the curbing here. You don't have to, but I also don't think it hurts you that much. You don't really lose speed doing it. It doesn't upset the car too much, so it's fine. In general, I wouldn't necessarily aim for it. You get a better dip right next to the curbing. But if you hit it, it's not that big a deal. So as you track out here, just try not to come out too wide. I actually kept it fairly tight on this lap. You could go a little wider, but you definitely do not want to hit that curbing on the outside. There's something up with that curbing where it's almost like the moment that you hit it, the car just gets pulled out onto the grass. You can get lucky, but you definitely want to avoid it. You also don't want to necessarily go out too far out to the left because you then have to come back over here. And you want to kind of come over to the right middle of the track because then you have to bring the car back over to the left. If you are too far over to the left at this point, you're going to have to let off the gas a lot sooner to make this essentially left-hander. That at this point, you're still full throttle and it's kind of just a little kink, a little bend versus almost becoming a left turn if you're too far over to the left right now. So make sure you come over to the right. I feel like this is one of those turns where you just have to do it a few times, knowing when to turn back to the left here. I have been told in the past that as you're coming up over this hill, right about here, way far in the distance, there's like a little hut. And that's kind of when you're pointing at that, then you know you need to start turning to the left. It looks like, for what I'm seeing here, I actually started turning left a little earlier than that. So maybe even that, tree that we're kind of pointing at is your turn-in point. But you're kind of pointing at that tree even earlier, and you're not turning in here. So like I think the point is the fact that when that hut is in view, you've come up far enough that now you can start turning into the left. I don't use that. I'm never looking out over there. This is kind of just one of those turns where I feel like you just do it enough and you kind of get the feel for when you have to start your turn in. Most important thing though is just make sure that you're over to the right over here, just so that you can still stay full throttle as you're coming back over to the left here. And once you want to kind of line your car up with that curbing. So right now I'm pretty much straight with that curbing, and you let off the throttle and you want to ease into the brakes here. As you can see, you're kind of crusting over a hill. You can't just jam on the brakes. You're gonna lock your wheels up. So you ease into the brakes. You reach your full brake pressure, I think, pretty much after you leave this curbing. Right here is where I'm at my full brake pressure. So right as you start to approach that curbing, you get on the brakes, slowly dig them in. And then once you've kind of stopped cresting, that's when you can reach your peak. And then you're coming into turn, I guess, this is 3 now. Turn 3, I'm actually going to switch into into chase view here. So let's just back this up here. So like I said, you kind of, this curbing does curve, but you kind of want to try to line yourself up with the top part of it here. So now I'm pretty much as straight as I can be with this, and then I'm going to reach my full brake pressure. Then I'm going to start to let off as I come into this turn. Now this turn, you can take a very decent amount of this curbing, and to be honest, you can take even more than this. Pretty much this white to the right of my rear tire is pretty much fair game. It's really tricky. You're just gonna have to practice a few times to see where your off track is. I think the way they gauge it actually is by your left side tires. If they're past the yellow line, let me move up a little bit here. Alright, so my left side tire, you can see like when I was back there, was still probably a good 6 inches off that yellow line. I think if your left side tires are at least on that yellow line, there's no off track. Once your left side tires start to get onto the curbing, then you've gone too far over to the right. You can completely miss this curbing, but you're just going to slow down a lot more. So you're just slowing yourself down. I will say that I actually think that if you go a little more to the right, like I said, around 6 inches to a foot from where I am here, the curbing actually ends up being a little bit smoother than where I took it here. This is, again, one of those turns you just have to try it a few times till you feel comfortable with, you know, the way the car's feeling over that curbing. Otherwise, you can't completely avoid it. But either way, it doesn't upset the car too much, at least the RSR. Some cars like the GT4 get thrown around a lot. In this car, it's not too bad. So you can definitely take the curbing just to straighten out this right-hander and you know, get a quicker line. Let me just switch back into cockpit. Alright, so you want to definitely get on throttle as you're going over this, just to lighten the front end and get a smoother ride over it. Now coming into the S's here, this is where I'm going to start to talk about the curbs. When I'm going for a full hot lap, I will usually take the curbing here. I don't get on the curbing quite yet. I will get on the curbing probably around here. This is probably when I start to get on the curbing. The curbing will definitely help you rotate, but that's also why you don't want to get on it too early. If you get on the curbing back here, you could lose the rear. You're going to start to rotate. You're going to keep going. Your front left is going to dig into that curbing, and then your rear is just really going to start to come around on you. So I'll get on it probably like around here. But like I said, this lap, I just wanted to point out how dangerous the curbing can be at this track, and this is the safe lap. So I did not get on the curbing at all here, and the RSR is so much downforce, you don't need it. Like in a GT4, I pretty much always take it just because the GT4 does not have the downforce, and I use the curbing to help me rotate. In this car, you don't need it. And in this case, you can see I'm full throttle. Pretty much once you come over turn 3 and over that curbing, you're full throttle all the way through the S's in the RSR. I don't take the curbing here. Now we start coming around. I usually try to come over to the left here a little bit. I do get my left tires on the curbing here. It's a completely flat curb, so there's nothing to worry about. Doesn't upset the car or anything. It just helps open up this right-hander since we are trying to stay full throttle. These curbs too, you can totally take them. In this lap, I didn't. You obviously, as you can see, you can try to make a straight line through these S's. In some other cars, like especially like GT3 cars, they don't necessarily have the downforce of the GTE cars, and I definitely try to straight line. I will probably go over the curbing here on the right, which is why you see all that dirt there, And then on the left-hander coming up, I'm usually completely over the curbing, like left foot in the grass, going up there, straightening out as much as possible. Like I said, RSR is plenty of downforce here, and this is the safe lap, you know. So I'm not taking the curbing here, nor am I taking the curbing here, but it has no problem, you know, doing any of that. Now, as much as you may want to straight line it towards that curbing here, coming up on the right side, don't, just because it comes back to the right again. So as you can see, I'm not going straight here. I'm still coming over to the left, to the left, to the left, and then I'm coming back to the right here. All right, you do not want to take this first curbing part, the first part of the curbing on the right side here. It is very bumpy, and as you can see, the curbing then comes back over to the right here, meaning you'd have to take the whole thing and it'll completely throw your car around. So when coming out of this one, you want to make sure you come over to the left before you then come back over to the right, and now you're basically in line with the latter part of this curbing. Again here, you can take this curbing. You have to be very careful on the brakes if you do, because the curbing can be a little slippery. In this lap, I did not take it. This is the safe lap. This is the safe line. So pretty much once I pass the curbing here and start to straighten out my car, that's when I let off the throttle. And I ease into the brakes here. You're going uphill, but you're not transitioning to uphill. You're more transitioning to leveling out. So you don't have that much grip on the tires right now. So I ease into the brakes slowly, not too much brake pressure, and then come back down before I come into this left-hander. Again, this left-hander is probably one of the, and it's probably the trickiest part of this track in regards to the curbs that I've been talking about. So you can completely destroy your car in this left-hander. I've seen it happen in many races. So first, this apex right here, you can completely miss it, or just slightly take the lower edge of it, and it's a fairly safe line. That's what I did in this lap. You can also completely see where the grass has some dirt before it meets the curbing. You can have your wheels go over that. You will not get an off track. You'll not get a 1X. It's no problem. You'll shorten your line a little bit. When I'm doing quality hot lap, that's usually what I'll do. But this is a safe lap, so I didn't. This lap I just had my left side tires on, just like on the lower edge of the curbing there. You want to trail your brakes into here, and then as you're passing that, that's when you want to get back on the gas. And now this is literally the most dangerous curbing of them all. When you come up onto here, the car gets thrown around like crazy. It's a very steep curbing, and then especially when you're coming off of it. Now let me switch into chase view for this, because you need to see where I'm putting my car, but where you could put your car. So like I said, in this apex right here, I'm just taking the lower part of the curbing, but you could even have your tires up in that dirt over there, and you're not going to get an off track. Now obviously you want to go full throttle as soon as possible. This is the safe line. So I could even be full throttle here, but I'm not, because I did not want to take all this curbing. The safe line is basically half your car on, half your car off. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going full throttle now, half my car on, half my car off. And the car is fairly happy there. When you're going all out, what's going to happen is that you're probably going to be full throttle almost here. And when you're doing that, you cannot have enough steering angle in order to bring the car to having only half of it on here. What's going to happen is you're going to be tracking out all the way to here. You're probably going to have your left side tires on that gray curbing over there. That's how far wide you're going to come out. No off track, nothing. You're not getting off track unless your car is in the sand on the right side there. As long as you're on this curbing, you're fine. But that's probably how far out you're going to come. And when you come out that far and you come off this curbing here all the way on the right side here, it is super, super, super bumpy. And not only that, the fact that you are going to be going out that wide means, because you weren't going slow enough, you're not going to have this angle that I have my car at right now. You're going to be angled more towards the fence. And so when you hit this curbing, the car is going to bounce around. You're going to be on that curbing. It's going to bounce around coming off. And then even here in this tarmac area, when you're coming off of it, it is super, super bumpy. And usually when you're coming off of it, you're not going to be coming back onto the track till about here. You're going to be hitting that curbing on the right side there before you come back on. It is a super fast line because you can, like I said, you're going to be full throttle probably by here. You're going to have your left side tires in the dirt over there, and you're going to be full throttle on your way out. So you can carry way more speed through this corner, and you're going to get on the gas much earlier. But your car is going to be bouncing around all over the place. So it is a possible line that can be very fast. Just be very cautious. The curbs here can kill you. I've seen a lot of cars go up onto the curb here, and boom, they go. Their car basically goes airborne at that point, and then they just start spinning. They'll either go wide to the right, hit that wall, spin back over to the left, or their rear will just come up, and then they're just going to spin right over to the left side into the inside wall. So just be very, very careful there. Coming over here, we're just straight lining this as much as possible. You want to be on the left side here because our right-hander is coming up. This 200 marker right here is pretty much where I start to lift, and a little bit after that is where I'm trying to reach peak brake pressure, which is right about here. So you can see there's a dotted line in the road here. That's my braking marker that I'm aiming for. I'm aiming to brake hard right there. So you can kind of it's you know, it depends on if you're right foot braker, left foot braker, you know. But you do have a decent amount of compression here because, as you can see, you're going downhill and then it's starting to level out, so you can brake pretty hard. I'm reaching, I hit, you know, almost 90% brake pressure there, so you can brake really hard, shave off a lot of speed really quick. But pretty much after you pass the dotted line is where you want to start to turn in, and then trail off the brakes. And now this is going to be like turn one. We're downshifting into third gear. And actually, let me switch back to cockpit view here. Again, like turn one, you have a little dip in the road here, some nice camber, so you got some compression. You want to make sure you're on the gas by the time you hit this dip. Like I said, in turn one, I did hit the curbing here, just like I did in turn one. Really doesn't upset the car, so this curbing is completely fine. I wouldn't say aim for it. Again, just like turn one, you want to have your right side tires pretty much just like on the edge of where the asphalt and the curbing meet. But it's safe to take the curbing too. Now, like I said, you want to be on full throttle. The moment you get into that dip, you come out, and pretty much the moment that you are reaching this curbing, you have to instantly start your braking because it's a very short straight here to your right-hander coming up. You can have your tires on this curbing here. It really doesn't hurt the car. It can be a little slippery, but not too much. So you can take this curbing here, and then pretty much as this curbing ends is when you want to start your turn in. Definitely go down to first gear. It'll help you a lot with slowing down the car with the engine brake. And then you want to slow down for this turn. The biggest mistake people make with this turn is trying to carry corner speed, this is not one of those corners. Turn 1, you want to try to carry as much speed as possible. Don't shave off too much speed. The previous right-hander right here, in third gear, try to shave off the least amount of speed as possible to make the turn nice and safely. This one, you want to slow down. Couple things. One, the tarmac here, for some strange reason, is very, very, very slippery. And if you're just carrying too much speed, you're not going to turn the car in at the angle you want, which is going to screw you up. And then getting on the gas, your front is either going to wash out wide, or you're just going to spin the car because you're going to have to turn the car. You're going to have so much steering input. And two, there's like a slight bump right on the outside of the curbing here, and then the curbing itself is not the nicest curbing. The RSR can't handle it. GT4s get bounced around like crazy. Like in the GT4, I would completely avoid the curb. This is kind of like turn 3 again. The RSR can take it. You just need to be very careful going over it. So we come in here, trail the brake, trail the brake, trail the brake, and then right as I'm going over it, that's pretty much when I start to pick up my throttle. But as you can see, I'm super progressive with the throttle, and I'm not even full throttle till I'm all the way out here. You definitely want to have a decent amount of throttle before that, and honestly, you could get on the throttle earlier. In order to get on throttle earlier, like at this point right here, you would have to have your car straightened out a little bit more. But like I said, that is the main thing. If you have too much speed coming into this corner right here, you're gonna come out a little wide here. You won't have been able to make that turn, even point the car the way I have it, because the tarmac is so slippery. And then forget about it. You're then gonna try to either correct it and give a little more gas to rotate. All you're gonna do is spin out. I don't know, how iRacing spec'd out the tarmac here. It's just very, very, very slippery. So you would rather over slow for this turn, so that you can get on the throttle nice and early, and not kicking in the traction control, then try to carry speed and then correct yourself coming out of here and feathering the throttle and everything. It's just not going to work. You're going to lose speed. So make sure you slow down a lot for this turn. And then the rest of it out here, this is your back straight. You're just going a straight line this as much as possible. Just keep it to the left here, and then right after this hill, you're going to be able to see pretty much the right-hander coming up. And then as you can see, I'm just like diagonally going across the street, just straight line as much as possible. And the RSR has plenty of downforce to make this right-hander no problem, full throttle the whole way. And now you're coming into the last corner complex of this track. Now my braking marker that I'm aiming for here is kind of that 100 marker, or that billboard sign on the right. Right now we're going downhill, so you don't have that much grip. So I'm careful getting onto the brakes, but as you can see, you start to level out, then you get a lot of compression, and so you can get on the brakes really hard. So I'm lifting, I start to brake around the 100. Right around here is when I start to brake, but I'm reaching peak brake pressure at the bottom of this hill basically, and actually it looks like I hit 100%, which is very surprising. But if you actually look at the lockup indicators for the front tires, I only have one yellow marker, which means I still have plenty of traction, plenty of grip. Like I said, you just get so much compression at the bottom of this hill because of it leveling out that you can brake really, really hard. That's why we can brake really, really late. Then I start to trail off as we start to lose that compression. But I'm still here. I'm still at 80% brake pressure. You can you can keep pushing the limits of how late you can brake here because of how hard you can brake here. Another thing I want to say is that this track is very wide at this point. You're going to have a lot of 2 wide or 3 wide races down into this chicane. So be forewarned. But also because the track is so wide, you don't actually have to go all the way right out onto that curbing. It's just unnecessary. You're just making the track longer for no reason. And pretty much right as this curbing is ending is when I'm starting my my turn in here. You can turn in really early here because you can take a lot of this curbing here. Let me switch to chase view here just to show you. So as long as your right side tires, again, are on the right side of that yellow line, you're not going to get an off track. I could have actually even gotten a little further to the left here. But so like I said, you can turn in early here as you're still shaving off some speed. Still trail braking, and then I get on the gas as I'm going through there. The main reason for this is because you have a right-hander coming up here, so you need to sacrifice your exit on this left-hander. For this right-hander, it's pretty much just a lift. So bring it to the right, lift. Actually, and you don't necessarily have to lift completely like I did here. This is just, like I said, this was a safe lap that I was trying to show you guys. So you can honestly keep a decent amount of throttle here. It would maybe lift like a 50% lift. But you just basically want to get the nose turned in. And then just be a little careful when you get back on the throttle here, because coming off this curbing here, there is a little bump. But for the most part, it's pretty flat. And then just track out, go full throttle. Coming into this last right-hander on the front straight, what I aim for is to basically apex right where this grass is. Let me go back into cockpit view here. So I'm kind of just aiming for the right side of the bridge. If you look right here, I turn my car and I aim for that. Another thing that I look for is the curbing here. Actually, let me switch back to chase real quick. See the curbing here? The way it trails off to the asphalt, the way it angles itself here, I'm kind of just keeping my car parallel with that. That's pretty much what I'm normally looking for. As I come into here, I'll come out, and then as I see the curbing come back in, I kind of just follow the curbing. And that's pretty much the angle that I want my car at. Some people say to aim for the 3 stripes at the bottom of that bridge. As you can see, I go actually further to the right there, and you're going to see why. So I'm coming to the right, aiming for that grass right there, and then I'm pretty much straight lining it out to the outside here, just aiming for the edge of this curb over here. I've had a little bit of steering input this whole time, but that's that's basically what I'm going for. I'm just trying to make a straight line from when I'm leaving that curbing on the outside on the left to this point right here. I can't quite straight line it just because I couldn't go any further than the grass on the right side when going underneath the bridge, you know. So there's just a slight steering angle this whole time, but I'm basically trying to go left all the way to the right, back to the left here in as much of a straight line as possible. But that's basically what I'm aiming for. So coming off of this curbing, I'm trying to make as much a straight line as possible, all the way to the edge of the grass there, and then back over to the edge of the grass over here. And then I'm pretty much turning in there. RSR has enough downforce. You can go full throttle, take that apex, track out, and you're home free. So yeah, so like I said, this is the only thing that I would mention with this track is there's the safe lines and the not so safe lines. The not so safe lines are faster, but you'll see the curbing here can really throw you around. And when I'm in a race, I'm just trying to avoid them as much as possible. They're either going to bounce you around and throw you around, or they can be very slippery. So just be careful, basically. But yeah, so good luck, guys, this week, and that was a track walk at Road Atlanta in the Porsche 911 RSR.